The sky hung still, heavy like truth unsaid, windless, dustless, as though the morning itself were holding its breath. At the gate of Dorian Enterprises stood a stranger in a faded security uniform. The tag on his chest read, Jonas. Before continuing this wonderful story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. I read every comment of yours, and if this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to my channel and keep the notifications. Let's continue. His sandals were cracked, his cap too big. He bowed his head when the others passed. But Jonas was no stranger. He was Ezra Dorian, only son of Chief Dorian, heir to an empire of glass towers and oil fields. But today, he was the dust beneath it. Not even the staff knew the story they were about to enter. Weeks earlier, Ezra had returned home from medical school and told his father, I want to find someone who sees my soul before my surname. Chief Dorian, still mourning the loss of his wife, had nodded and handed Ezra a sealed envelope. From your mother. Open it after the test. Ezra hadn't yet dared, but that was only the first twist. Privately, Chief Dorian had told the senior staff, this Jonas boy came out of prison last year. I'm giving him one last chance. It was a lie, but one that revealed some. Upstairs, Zena, head of operations, sneered when she heard the news. An ex-convict guarding the gates? She laughed, twisting her ring. Mr. Ufei, the temporary company rep, leaned in and whispered, I give him 2 weeks before he breaks. Zena raised an eyebrow. Wanna bet? They shook hands over coffee, a private game to emotionally destroy the new boy. That morning, as Ezra swept the courtyard, Zena strutted past him. No glance, no greeting, just judgment in perfume. But Amara stopped, a quiet woman from accounts. She looked at him softly. You're new? Ezra nodded. She offered a bottle of water. It's hot today. Don't forget to drink. He blinked. Thank you. As she walked away, he didn't know she was Chief Dorian's goddaughter, hiding in plain sight for her own reasons. Ezra touched the envelope in his pocket and whispered, Let the masks fall. The test had begun. And somewhere, fate smiled. By midday, the sun sat fat and golden over the roof of Dorian Enterprises. Sweat clung to collars. Tempers thinned, yet behind glass doors and polished marble, something colder brewed. A wager sealed by pride. Zena closed her office blinds and leaned toward Mr. Fay. Her lipstick hadn't cracked all day. Her eyes sparkled with something dangerous. He doesn't even make eye contact, she whispered. You're sure Chief Dorian called him an ex-con? Mr. Fay nodded, swirling his coffee. Caught for assault, released 6 months ago. No family, no papers, just a pity hire. Zena smiled. 2 weeks. Afei raised his brows. Make it 1. They shook hands again, this time without words. The bet was on. Who could crack the strange, quiet guard named Jonas first? Neither of them knew he had read everything in their body language. Ezra had grown up studying people at boardroom tables, not broomsticks. He had seen this hunger before. In vultures. Down at the gate, Ezra leaned against the post, watching Amara cross the courtyard again. She moved like someone raised in silence. Every step humble, every breath calm. He wondered why she never looked afraid. Later that day, a junior staff member named Yemi stopped by with a message. Hey, Amara said you dropped your ID badge earlier. He handed it over with a grin. Ezra blinked. She noticed? Yemi shrugged. She notices a lot. Ezra tucked the badge back in place, unsure whether to feel grateful or exposed. Meanwhile, upstairs, Zena stood in the corridor, watching Ezra greet a cleaner, watching Amara wave politely. She turned to Mr. Effie later and said, She likes him. Effie raised an eyebrow. You sure? Zena smirked. Watch her smile when he passes. Outside, Ezra paused, staring at the small envelope still in his pocket. His mother's handwriting curled across the seal. He ran his thumb along the edge, but didn't open it. Not yet. Not until the storm revealed who was rain and who was flood. The next morning broke with a restless sky. Clouds hung low like secrets waiting to fall. A storm was whispering somewhere far, but close enough for the air to taste of iron. Ezra arrived at the gate early, broom in hand, uniform still damp from yesterday's rain. But today his eyes were sharper. Because he had seen something last night, a flicker in Amara's gaze when she passed. Not the flirtatious glint he had learned to fear. No, this one felt like memory, the kind that remembers pain and still chooses kindness. As he swept the walkway, a small white hibiscus flower rolled from under a bush and landed near his foot. Gently, he picked it up. A moment later, Amara appeared again. Today she wore blue, simple, sleeveless, beautiful, in a way that didn't try. She paused when she saw him holding the flower. "That's my favorite," she said softly. Ezra blinked. "It rolled to me. Maybe it's trying to return to you." She smiled, and for a moment, the wind dared not move. He handed her the flower. Their fingers didn't touch, but something passed between them anyway. Upstairs, Zena stood behind the window, arms crossed. She saw everything. She always did. "She's really doing it," she muttered. Flirting with the gate boy like he's some wounded bird. Mr. Fulai, seated behind her, didn't look up from his tablet. "She's probably bored." Zena turned. "No, this one's different. Amara doesn't act without reason." Then she paused. "Find out where that Jonas boy goes after work. I want to know who he really is." If he glanced up, "You're taking this bet too far." Zena's lips curled. "I don't lose." Back at the gate, Ezra watched Amara walk away with the flower tucked behind her ear. He smiled faintly. She didn't know it, but that one act would echo louder than diamonds, and above them, thunder rolled, low and distant like a warning from the gods. The soil is shifting, and someone's roots are too shallow to survive. The mop glided across the marble like a prayer, silent, repetitive, cleansing. Ezra had volunteered for early duty that morning. He wanted to listen, not speak. The main hallway echoed with voices from the break room nearby. Most were harmless chatter, until he heard her. "Zena, I've had enough of these village girls pretending to be angels," she said, voice sharp behind a closed door. "Do you know Amara hasn't even joined a single office party in 2 years? She acts holy because she thinks she's better than us." Another voice giggling. "Maybe she is," Zena scoffed. "Please. A woman who hides is usually hiding something ugly." Ezra paused, mop still. The floor was spotless, but the air had turned filthy. That afternoon, Amara walked past his post and greeted as usual. Her voice was soft, but her eyes carried the weight of a recent wound. Ezra tilted his head. "You all right?" She hesitated. "Some people talk too much," she murmured. "But I've learned not to drink from every cup passed around." Ezra smiled. "Some cups look clean but poison the soul." She stopped and blinked, then smiled. That evening, Zena watched them from her car, lips thin. "She's falling." "We can use that," she told Effie over the phone. "You mean break her too?" he asked. "No," she replied, eyes fixed on Ezra. "Let's make him betray her first." That night, the room was quiet, too quiet. Ezra sat alone on the bed in his tiny apartment near the staff quarters. He lit a candle. The light flickered like nervous breath. He took out the sealed envelope. His mother's handwriting was like vines, still alive, still wrapped around his heart. He opened it. "My Ezra, if you are reading this, you have chosen the harder road. I hope you are dressed in humility. I hope your hands are rough with service. When I was pregnant with you, I had a dream. You stood at a dusty gate, and a woman offered you water when the sun was cruel. My son, marry the one who quenches your thirst before she asks your name. Love, Mama. Ezra's throat tightened. He saw Amara's hand again offering him cold water. No questions, no conditions, just care. His mother had seen it long ago. His mother had known. But the test wasn't done, and somewhere in the dark, wolves sharpened their teeth. Monday came with perfume and performance. Zena arrived in a dress that clung like envy, her eyes glittering with purpose. She walked straight to Mr. Athey's office. "It's time," she said. Athey looked up. Time for what? To bait the girl, break her pride, make her doubt the guard. Athey frowned. "You want me to flirt with Amara?" Zena leaned over the desk. "She respects you. Use that. Talk gently, compliment her work, pull her close. When she trusts you, suggest, Jonas isn't who he says he is." Athey sighed. "You're terrifying." She smiled. "That's why I win." Later that day, Mr. Fee found Amara near the finance room. She was reviewing invoices, her brows furrowed. "You're always so focused," he said warmly. She looked up, surprised. "Oh, thank you, sir. I noticed you're the only one who never misses a ledger error," he said. She smiled slightly. "I just like when things are in order." He nodded. "So do I." Then his tone changed, softer. "Be careful with some of the staff, though. Especially new hires. One of them might not be who he claims to be." Her face stiffened. "Who do you mean?" "Jonas," he said, with a practiced sigh. "Just a feeling. Something doesn't sit right." Amara stared at him for a moment, then said, "Sometimes people hide, not because they're dangerous, but because they've been hurt before." Athey blinked. She was stronger than they thought. Still, the seed was planted. And as she walked away, he muttered to himself, "Zena may have met her match." The office cafeteria buzzed like a beehive that Wednesday afternoon. Lunch trays clattered. Small laughter rose and fell. But when Zena entered, silence arrived with her. Red heels, red lipstick, red rage dressed in beauty. She carried her chin like a weapon, eyes scanning the room until they found their target. Amara seated quietly in the corner, eating plain rice. Zena strutted over. "Hope the food tastes as humble as your new friendship," she said, loud enough for the room to hear. Amara looked up, spoon still mid-air. "Excuse me?" Zena crossed her arms. "You and that, Jonas?" Sharing water, sharing smiles. "Don't say I didn't warn you. I don't recall asking for your advice." Amara replied calmly. "Oh, honey," Zena chuckled darkly. "You'll need it. That boy? He's not what you think. And when your heart breaks, I'll be here." Smiling, Amara stood slowly. "Is that a promise or a threat?" Zena leaned close. "A prophecy." Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking like war drums. Behind her, whispers grew like weeds. But as Amara sat down again, her fingers trembled around her spoon. Doubt had slipped in, not like lightning, but like slow rain. Quiet, steady, chilling. Meanwhile, Ezra watched from afar, hidden in a corner behind a cleaning cart. He had heard it all. And inside him, something boiled, not just for Amara's sake, but for his own helplessness. For this game where love was hunted like prey. Upstairs, Mr. Athey texted Zena one word, planted, and in the break room below a single truth rooted itself in the silence. Even flowers wilt when rumors fall like ash. That night, Amara sat alone in her room. The fan whirred softly above. Her bedsheet was clean, but her thoughts were not. She stared at the ceiling, remembering Zena's words. Why did Jonas make her heart feel calm, like standing beside a still river? Why did she feel this urge to defend him when the world called him nothing? And yet, who was he really? She stood up and opened the old chest by her bed. Inside was a weathered photograph, her as a child sitting on Chief Dorian's lap, his eyes warm, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. A goddaughter. A secret bond she never used. A door she never knocked on. Because Amara had vowed to never gain anything through connections, not after what happened to her mother. Her mother, Chief Dorian's cousin, had died with secrets in her lungs and pride in her silence. Amara still carried both. She returned the photo to the chest and whispered, "If he loves me for who I am, not for what blood flows in me, then maybe I'll tell him. One day." Meanwhile, across the compound, Ezra sat on the steps of the security shed. He had replayed Zena's venom 100 times in his mind. Her words, her tone, her arrogance. But what struck deeper was the way Amara stood her ground. Graceful, wounded, unbending. He pulled out the letter again, reading his mother's words by torchlight. "Marry the one who quenches your thirst before she asks your name." He closed it gently, placed it against his chest, and looked at the stars above. Somewhere behind those stars his mother was watching. And somewhere closer, Amara was waiting for truth to come knocking. It was Friday. The compound buzzed early. Rumors of an unexpected staff meeting had rippled through every hallway. Chief Dorian himself would be arriving. No one knew why. Ezra, in uniform, stood at the gate like always. But this morning his fingers were cold, his breath shallow. He wasn't ready, not for the meeting. Not for what came after. Because last night he had heard something that changed the rhythm of his blood. Zena. Her voice in the corridor outside the HR room. "He's weak," she had said, laughing. "I'll make him beg. Watch, he'll quit before the month ends." Misty had chuckled. "If he doesn't, you owe me dinner." It wasn't just pride anymore, it was cruelty. Sport, entertainment. Ezra had leaned against the wall in the dark, heart pounding. He wasn't playing a game, but they were, with lives. By 10 a.m. the staff gathered in the conference room. The air was sharp with perfume and pretension. Chief Dorian entered, robes flowing, cane tapping. Ezra remained outside, guarding the door. But his ears were open. "I called this meeting," the chief said, "to remind you all this company is built on discipline and decency, and soon my son will return. I want him to walk into a company worth inheriting." Inside, Zena sat straighter, adjusting her blouse. Amara sat still, her face unreadable. Outside, Ezra's hands balled into fists. Soon the masks would drop. The names would rise, and the hunter would meet the mirror. The next morning came with wind, sharp, restless, and scented with rain that had not yet fallen. It rushed through the trees like whispers in a courtroom, swaying branches like truth about to burst. Ezra stood at the gate as usual, but something in him had shifted. He felt exposed, like the uniform was no longer enough to hide the pulse of his real name. Amara arrived early. She had a folder in one hand and a small sachet of roasted ground nuts in the other. When she reached him, she stopped. "Breakfast?" she asked with a smile. He blinked. "For me? You look hungry," she said. He took it slowly, carefully. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," she said. "The first day you greeted me like I mattered." They shared a quiet moment under the jacaranda tree as the wind wrapped around them like prophecy. She leaned slightly closer. "People talk, but I don't listen. I see with my own eyes." Ezra nodded, heart thudding against the truth he still couldn't share. "And what do you see? A man who doesn't belong in that uniform." Ezra flinched, but she continued. "You sweep like someone who's never touched a broom before. You walk like someone raised to lead, not follow." He swallowed hard. "And does that bother you?" "No," she whispered. "It makes me curious and cautious." He looked at her fully then. "Why cautious?" She smiled, sad and knowing. because the last man who pretended with me left me with scars no broom could sweep." She turned and walked away, her hair catching the wind. Ezra stood frozen, sachet in hand, the taste of truth on his tongue bitter, but beautiful. He wasn't the only one carrying a secret. That evening, the company compound thinned like soup in a poor man's kitchen. Most staff had gone home. The sky blushed orange, holding back the night. Ezra stayed behind, helping the janitors lock up. He liked moving through shadows, fewer eyes, fewer questions. But one pair of eyes had not left. Zena. She stood near the hallway pillar, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. As Ezra passed, she called out, "Jonas." He paused. "Yes, ma'am." "You missed a corner," she said, pointing to a perfectly clean section of tile. Ezra didn't argue. He returned and bent to wipe nothing. Zena stepped closer. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice a low purr. "You've lasted longer than I expected. Maybe I misjudged you." Ezra said nothing. She reached out, brushed imaginary dust from his collar. "You don't talk much." "Nothing to say," he replied. "But you're not bad to look at," she murmured. Ezra stood up straight. "Excuse me." Before he could step back, Zena leaned in and kissed him. It was brief, uninvited, cold. Ezra pulled away instantly, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply. She shrugged, smirking. "Just a little welcome bonus." Ezra's fists clenched. "Don't ever." But a sound stopped them. Footsteps. Amara. She had come to return a report she left in the finance office. She saw the two of them, the closeness, the silence. Ezra's pale face. Her own expression didn't change, but something inside her cracked. She turned without a word. Ezra called, "Amara, wait." That wasn't. But she was gone. Zena smiled, lips red as betrayal. "Oops." Ezra stood alone in the hallway, his heart burning hotter than shame. Some mistakes don't need time, they only need silence. 2 days passed like a funeral with no coffin. Ezra and Amara barely spoke. Her greetings were polite, her eyes guarded. He tried once to explain, but she waved him off gently. "I've heard enough apologies in this life," she said. "I know how they end." Ezra carried the guilt like bricks, but Zena carried triumph like perfume. Then came the cleaner. Monokemi, the oldest staff in the building, soft-spoken, broom in hand, and eyes sharper than any executive's. She had seen the hallway kiss, she had seen Amara's retreat. She had seen Zena smile like someone who just won a war. And she had heard the bet. One afternoon, as Ezra emptied trash near the back stairs, Monokemi approached him. "My son," she whispered, "let me tell you something dangerous." Ezra turned, confused. "Not every silence is peace," she said. "And not every woman who smiles is safe." He frowned. "I don't understand." She leaned closer. "That lady's Zena. I heard her and that fine Mr. Ife. They made a bet." Ezra froze. "What bet?" "To break you. Emotionally. Make you quit." Ezra's jaw clenched. "But Amara," he started. "She's not part of it," Mama Kemi said. "That one? She's like moonlight. Quiet but loyal." Ezra nodded slowly. "Thank you." Mama Kemi smiled. "Just don't wait too long. Some flowers don't bloom twice." That evening, Ezra stared at himself in the mirror of the guardroom. Zena had kissed him to create distance. Ife had lied to poison Amara's trust. And he had hidden the biggest truth of all. He took a deep breath, wiped his face, and whispered to the mirror, "It's time they see who I really am." The rain came without warning, sharp, loud, and angry. It slammed into the rooftops of Dorian Enterprises like a judgment finally spoken aloud. Staff scrambled. Umbrellas flipped, papers flew. But Ezra didn't run. He stood at the gate, soaked to the skin, face tilted skyward. It wasn't just water. It was washing. It was baptism. He remembered Mama Kemi's words, Zena's kiss, Amara's distance. Most of all, he remembered the letter, his mother's voice whispering through ink, "Marry the one who quenches your thirst before she asks your name." Then, through the curtain of rain, he saw her, Amara, standing beneath the shelter of the office entrance watching him, alone. She hesitated, then walked into the rain, step by quiet step, until she reached him. Neither spoke. She removed a handkerchief from her bag and wiped the rain from his face. Pointless, yet intimate. "You look tired," she whispered. "I am," he confessed. "Tired of pretending. Tired of being silent." Then, Ezra met her eyes, unsure whether she meant his disguise or the distance. "I didn't kiss her," he said. "She kissed me." Amara blinked. "I know. You do? I saw your face. You looked like you were choking on glass." Ezra chuckled softly. "I was." She looked up at the dark sky. "Maybe it's time we both stop hiding." He raised an eyebrow. "You too?" But before she could answer, the office speaker crackled. "All staff conference room in 30 minutes. Mandatory meeting. Chief Dorian will address everyone." Amara touched his arm. "Something's coming." Ezra nodded. Yes, something was coming, and it carried the weight of his true name. The conference room buzzed like a beehive cracked open. Suits were ironed, shoes were polished, smiles were artificial. Chief Dorian entered with calm that cut through the noise. Ezra stood quietly near the rear door, still in uniform but no longer hiding. Dorian raised a hand. "My children," he began. "For 35 years I have led this company. But I won't lead forever. Murmurs." He continued. "Soon, a new face will lead this legacy. My son has returned, and though many of you do not yet know him, you've already met him." Gasps. Zena's face twitched. Ife blinked rapidly. Chief Dorian turned to the back of the room. "Jonas, come forward." Ezra stepped forward. Whispers bloomed like wildfire. He removed his cap, his face now fully visible, clean, composed, undeniable. "My real name," he said, voice steady, "is Dr. Ezra Dorian. I am the only son of Chief Dorian, and I've been among you, in disguise." Silence collapsed the room. Zena's mouth opened but no sound came. Ezra scanned the room. "I wanted to see how people treat those they believe are beneath them. I wanted truth, not performance." He turned to Chief Dorian. "Father, I'm ready." Chief Dorian nodded, eyes moist. "And you have passed." Then Ezra looked at Zena. But not everyone did. Zena stammered. I didn't know. You made a bet to break me," Ezra said calmly. "You treated me like trash." He looked to Mr. Ife. "And you helped her." The room gasped. Ezra added, "But one person offered me water before she knew my name." He turned to Amara. She stood still, eyes wide. "You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me kindness when you had nothing to gain." Chief Dorian stepped forward again. "And now, I invite you all to witness what honor looks like." He reached into his pocket and held up a ring. The room held its breath. Time bowed. Ezra turned to Amara and took her hand. No hesitation, no permission from status or blood. Just the simple authority of a man who knew what mattered. "Amara," he said, "will you allow me to begin something honest with you?" Amara's eyes shimmered, but her voice held firm. "Only if I can tell you my truth too." He smiled. "Please." She turned to the room. "My name is Amara Anyakachi. Some of you know me only as an accountant. But Chief Dorian is my godfather. My mother, his cousin, died when I was little. I came here to build on my own, without using his name." Gasps again. Zena looked like she had swallowed fire. Ezra whispered. You were testing me too. Amara nodded. To see who would value my presence, not my past. He stepped back and laughed. Genuine. Free. Chief Dorian raised both hands. Then I am proud of you both. One tested love in poverty. The other tested love without privilege. And both passed. Staff clapped, some out of awe, others out of guilt. Zena turned to leave, but a guard blocked the exit. Not yet, Chief Dorian said coldly. Zena, Mr. Efe, you will be escorted out after this meeting. The game is over. Ezra took the ring, stepped forward, and dropped to one knee, not to propose marriage yet, but to honor the woman who saw him beneath the title, to the one who gave me water when I had no name. This ring is yours whether now or later. Amara nodded, tears on her cheeks. Then wear my truth too, because I choose you, not your crown. And with that, thunder rolled outside, but this time no one flinched, because inside the room, truth had finally spoken. Zena walked through the compound like someone escaping fire, except the fire was behind her eyes. Behind her, guards followed, not with force, but with finality. The same staff who once bowed to her no longer moved aside. They stared. Some whispered. Some smirked. Her red heels, the same ones that once clicked with pride, now sounded like echoes of defeat. Mr. Efe trailed a few steps behind, his shirt untucked, confidence leaking with every breath. The bet, once a joke between snakes, had turned into public venom. Outside the gates, they were handed their letters. Effective immediately, the guard said, voice flat. Your access has been revoked. Zena grabbed hers with trembling hands. He set me up, she muttered. All of this was a trap. Efe said nothing, just stared at the company logo one last time before folding the letter and slipping it into his back pocket, like regret. Inside, Amara watched from the window. Ezra stood beside her. She'll never forget this day, Amara whispered. Ezra nodded. Sometimes the best revenge is truth, wearing no makeup. Amara smiled faintly, and peace with clean hands. Ezra turned to her. I want to take you somewhere tomorrow. Where? He reached into his coat pocket and handed her the folded letter, the one from his mother. Where her words first came alive, he said. Amara held the letter like it carried breath. Outside, Zena looked up at the office one last time. Her eyes found the window. She saw Amara, saw Ezra, and she understood. She hadn't lost to a man. She had lost to something she'd never known how to value honor. They walked without drivers, without bodyguards. Just two people, side by side, down a dusty village path that still remembered the footsteps of their childhood. Ezra led her past farmland, past sleeping goats, until they reached it. The old flame tree, its branches twisted like prayerful hands, its roots thick with stories, its shade cooler than silence. This is where my mother used to come, Ezra said, when she was sick, when she was happy, when she was just tired. Amara sat on a low stone. It's beautiful. Ezra knelt beside her, placed the letter in her palm, read it again. Out loud, she opened the paper, the ink now soft with time. Marry the one who quenches your thirst before she asks your name. Amara looked up, eyes bright. She saw me before I was born. Ezra nodded. And you saw me before I was real. A breeze passed through the leaves, and the tree whispered something only the roots understood. Ezra took her hand. I don't want a throne, he said. I want a home. And I think it's wherever you are. Amara swallowed. I've been alone for so long, I forgot what belonging felt like. Ezra leaned in. Then, let's relearn it. Together. She rested her head on his shoulder. But promise me, no more masks. No more. They sat like that for a long time, saying nothing, letting the wind finish what their mouths couldn't. The flame tree watched. It had seen men bring women here to lie, to seduce, to leave, but this was different. This was a return. The recognition, a root meeting another root. Back at Dorian Enterprises, a new email arrived. Subject line, "You are cordially invited." The staff stared. Ezra and Amara's proposal ceremony was happening that weekend, and unlike anything the company had seen before, it would be held under the flame tree in the village, a place where lies couldn't hide under perfume. The invitation had a single line at the bottom, "Come dressed in truth," and people came. Drivers, secretaries, janitors, executives. Even Mama Kemi arrived wearing her best wrapper, carrying groundnuts wrapped in old newspaper. The guests stood under lanterns strung between branches. Drums played gently. Candles lined the dirt path. Then came Ezra. No suit, just clean white linen, barefoot. Then Amara. A simple gown, no diamonds, just dignity. They met under the tree, surrounded by those who had seen the before, the during, and now the truth. Chief Dorian gave a short speech. "When I first built this company, I thought success was steel and stone. But now I know it's character." Then he turned to the crowd. "Let today be a reminder. Crowns fall, but hearts, they rise." Ezra took the mic, looked at Amara, and smiled. "I once swept floors here, and I met a woman who saw my soul between the dust. This ring," he lifted it, "belongs to her." He knelt again, but this time, Amara knelt too. "No thrones between us," she whispered. "Only roots." They slipped rings on each other's fingers as the wind moved through the tree like a grandmother's blessing. And in the crowd, every person felt it. This wasn't just a proposal, it was a redemption. 3 months passed like a soft song. The headquarters of Dorian Enterprises was no longer tense with hierarchy. Titles mattered less. Eyes looked lower, more often with respect than suspicion. Alma now managed the Welfare and Human Relations Unit, where she quietly ensured no Jonas was ever dismissed without dignity again. Ezra split his days between outreach clinics and the company boardroom, but he often still walked barefoot on Fridays. As a reminder, one afternoon, a guard approached the front desk, whispering, "Sir, someone is asking to see you." "Who?" Ezra asked. The guard hesitated. "She says she used to work here." Ezra stepped out slowly. There she was, Zena. But she was not in heels, not in red. Her scarf was old, her eyes no longer pierced. They floated, like someone too tired to fight gravity. Ezra blinked. I came to say sorry," she whispered. He said nothing. "I lost everything," she continued, "but the part that haunts me most was how I treated someone who never raised his voice." Still, Ezra said nothing. Then Zena's voice cracked. "I came to ask, can you help me find work? Not here, just somewhere." Ezra looked at her, truly looked. Then he turned to the new guard at the gate. "Give her water. Let her sit." Zena blinked, stunned. "I haven't said yes," Ezra nodded. "But my mother once said, we don't give water to the deserving. We give water to the thirsty." He walked away without another word. Zena sat on the bench, watching him disappear inside the building she once thought she'd own. And for the first time in years, she wept not from pride, but from release. 1 year later, under the same flame tree where vows were exchanged, laughter echoed again. But this time, it was not drums and lanterns. It was lullabies. Ezra and Amara cradled a small child wrapped in white cotton. His fingers were curled, his breath soft. His name, Munkum. "What is mine will never be taken." Mama Kemi sat on a stool nearby, clapping gently. "This child will never thirst," she said. "He was born from truth." The villagers brought gifts, yam, soap, song. No gold, no pretense, just pure things. Chief Dorian stood and said, "My empire has grown, but not through profit. Through legacy." Ezra turned to Amara. "Do you regret anything?" he asked. Amara looked at the baby, then at the tree. "Only that I didn't meet you sooner," she said. "But maybe we had to find our truest selves first." They walked to the base of the tree and placed a small wooden plaque in the soil. It read, "This is where truth drank water." Visitors who passed later would ask, "What does it mean?" And locals would smile and say, "If you don't understand, then you haven't been thirsty enough." That night, Ezra stood alone beneath the stars. He whispered a thank you to his mother, to the mirror he once feared, to the broom that first introduced him to grace, because in losing everything fake, he had gained something eternal. And in the distance, the wind replied, not loud, not proud, just honest. If this heart-touching story moved you, don't let it be the last. Like, share and subscribe to my channel and keep the emotions flowing. Another heart-touching story is ready for you to listen and enjoy.